Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Talent Time. Today I promised a special man, a special guest. His name is Don Whitney, and he's also known as the Mud Man. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks for coming down today.
Happy to do it.
I took a class with you that was kind of scary.
I remember it well.
And it was, for me, it was a very therapeutic class, or it was meant to be, but it was very difficult.
A little humbling, probably.
It was very humbling, but you were my teacher, and I was grateful that you were my teacher because you're very level-headed, very calm, and when I made mistakes, you fixed them. You fixed them, and I was very lucky. I was looking up some of your information before I came in today, or yesterday. I was looking it up. And the name of your website is called mudmanpots.com.
Correct.
And on there's a whole biographical and then some of your works that you've shown. Just tell me, how did you actually get started in this? I know that you had a job at Gillette.
Right, I was a career Gillette person.
That's right. Are you a chemist or a...
No, I was always in the operations side, the supply chain. Yeah.
What got your attention doing pottery?
Well, early in my career, Gillette had moved me out or transferred me to Minnesota, and I didn't know a soul. So you start doing things to meet people, and I signed up for a continuing ed class.
So that's where you met people?
Didn't actually meet that many, but I ended up finding a passion ultimately.
So it's not a singles bar, but it's a great way to say hello to people.
Nothing else.
I love it. Were you married?
Not at the time. I moved out single and really didn't know anybody.
You really didn't know anybody?
Yeah.
Well, so it's a good way to get to know people.
And I signed up for a stained glass class
that
was
go?
full. So they said, oh, there's pottery the same night. Now, I had never seen a potter's wheel. But I said, well, I'm game.
Was that the one where they had to do the wheel?
It was the treadle wheel.
Oh,
yeah.
You couldn't have got me in that class.
That was tough. But I didn't know any better because I had never seen it, and I just began.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it's amazing some of the works that I personally have seen you do. I know that I think I made 7, and I'm sure that you still talk about them because...
Oh, we have Sharon stories in class. There's no doubt about that.
I know there was one that was a particular favorite of mine, and it was what would you call it? The plaque that you hang outside your door that you put the rawhide rope on, and it was around Christmas time. So
with the holly leaves.
With the holly leaves and the berries, and you magically made them red, the berries red, or I did.
You did.
But see, that was the interesting thing about it. It didn't matter what color the glaze was that you put on, but it came out.
Yeah, it's very confusing. The last act, which is the glazing, doesn't look anything like it's going to end up, and it's hard to make that transition. But yeah, we've used that holly technique ever since.
Oh, I'm famous.
Another reason to think of you. Yeah.
Tell me something. Are there some pieces here that you would like to share with me? Because I'm looking at a bunch of beautiful things.
Well, I brought quite a few, and we can talk about them. But the first one I wanted to show is not one that I made at all. This is my oatmeal bowl, and it's by a potter from Minnesota, Warren McKenzie. And he's been listed as one of the top 10 potters in the world. And it's not because he's technically so brilliant, although he's a good potter, but he taught at University of Minnesota for almost 50 years, and his philosophy of a pot is not complete until it's been used is what he really instilled in all these potters. So,
which is why, of course, you use it for your oatmeal.
And that it's chipped and cracked, and that's what it's supposed to be, because a pot shouldn't really just sit on a shelf. It should be used.
Got a personality to it.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, I'm using my bean pot right now to hold business cards.
It doesn't matter what. But I think the idea that you take a lump of clay, earth, and all of a sudden it's functionally something that's the hook for me.
That is the hook that got me. I got you. When you take it, throw it on the wheel, if I remember, a little bit of water, starts to spin, and then you stick your thumb in the middle of it. Do I have that right?
maybe
Okay,
not
I don't
the
remember.
thumb, but, right, but
Your fingers.
Your hands stay in one place. You let the wheel do the work, and you begin the making. Yeah.
That's sort of giving yourself over to the wheel.
Well, it's your total focus ends up on that clay, and that's part of the attraction too. That time disappears in the act of making.
I can see how that could be the case. Do you consider yourself a potter?
At this point, I do. I have the luxury that I was able to retire, so now I could pursue a passion I had had for many years. And between the making and teaching classes, that's really the...
Well, I know that there's more than one kind, and there's one that I was reading about called raku.
Raku. Yeah.
Raku. Can you show me? Do you have any raku?
I have a couple of pieces. And raku is an ancient Japanese style of pottery.
Look at that.
This was something I fired last night. It's for one of my kids that as he goes off to college, I fill it with quarters for laundry. But the raku process is different firing where we force the chemistry. We take it out of the kiln when it's 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, throw it into combustibles to generate flames, and then seal the flames from oxygen. So it has to interact with the glaze and starts to pull out the chemicals in the glaze in a different way.
Well, that's interesting. So you picked all those colors to work like that, or does it sort of end up like that with a sort of generalization of the colors?
I could never create the exact same finish, but there are two chemicals in the glaze, a cobalt oxide and a copper oxide. When those flames are robbed of oxygen, they steal the oxide from those chemicals and they leave the cobalt, which would be the blues, or the copper.
Right.
And that's what's left.
Wow.
And then the one other difference, in the inside you see the white and the grackle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's because there's such a thermal shock from 1800 degrees to 80 that the glaze shrinks faster than the clay. And then the smoke goes in and fills in all that.
How neat.
The grackling. So it's a nice, so that's.
Do you have any more of those?
I have actually two others to show that are, one, this is just, I needed a plate for the house, number 8. So that was kind of a nice
So your
use
address
of,
is number 8. What's, in case anybody's looking, if anybody wants to, I'm joking.
And then one a plate that I made this morning, so you can still smell
Oh, that's what that smell is.
Yeah, and this again didn't have the texture on the clay.
Can I touch it?
Oh, sure you can, yeah. It's a little bit more of a matte finish, but again, you see almost an oil spot colors.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
And
Did you
then,
make that for me?
if you'd like it, I'm more than happy to.
Love it.
On the bottom, where there's no glaze, this is the carbon from the combustibles that happened.
I love it.
Yeah, so.
It's fabulous. And what is the other vegetable dip one
Oh,
that I call
little
that?
chip and dip.
Chip
So
and
this
dip.
would be stoneware. And again, just functionally a combined inner bowl and outer bowl to be used for
I love it.
whatever. Thank you.
Show me some more stoneware. Show me some more. Do you have more down there?
Sure I do. I can show you my favorite coffee mug.
Oh, goodness.
So nothing fancy to it. And you know, mugs are obviously very personal. What fits your hand and the size you like. That happens to hold the large Keurig serving, so it's just the right size for me. And it fits my hand.
And coming from the background you come from, you actually have to calculate that. I can see that it has
I
to
kind of, it's part of my nature, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that would be the case.
But that
would be the case.
That's my mug most mornings. And
Did you show me some earthware? Because I know that there's something
yeah,
called
let me just, if
earthware.
you don't mind, I'll show you
no,
one
no,
more
no, no, no.
stoneware, just because this is a glaze I'm kind of learning with and I'm happy with, because it's starting to pull out some different colors.
I did a blue and a white, but this green is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
That's gorgeous.
thank you. Yeah, the glaze there has some iron oxide in it, and that tends to add some real depth to some of those glazes. Yeah, so that's another
Where
one
do you
I brought.
teach, by the way?
I teach at right now 3 different places: the Plymouth Center for the Arts, where we met, Duxbury Art Association, and then Hingham Continuing Ed at the high school.
Oh, so is this you said it's a sort of a part-time, whenever you feel like kind of...
On my terms, I'll say, but once you commit, of course, you got to show up. So I'm 4 nights a week right now, which I enjoy it, so it's not work, but it's quite a bit. I mean, I'm probably 20 hours a week of teaching.
Do you still go for education for it? Are you going to take classes from, say, someone else? Or have you learned it all?
Oh, I don't think. No, there are a lot of workshops available, and I'll occasionally go to ones. I went to one for a week 2 summers ago, which I'd never gone that long, called Size Matters. And it was all about oversized pieces and learning proportions and function. And I really enjoyed just from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, just throwing and with other potters and talking, and really fun.
And again, another great way to meet beautiful, wonderful people who can do more. That's amazing.
Anytime you're with people that's sharing your passion, it's fun.
That's right. What do we talk about passion? Passion is part natural ability, part, how does it work? Part teaching, part, I don't know. I'm trying to think. As a musician, I can do nothing but be a musician. I don't think about it. I am a musician. But it's something that's, I don't know, I share with people. This is like a natural thing for you, it seems.
Oh, definitely not a natural. I don't think I could draw a horse that anybody could tell it's a horse. So there's no artistic talent. I view pottery as a craft. So it's a learned skill. But the more you do it, you start to learn what traditionally works on a shape or doesn't. And but it's a craft. So it's a bit humbling at first that you've got to just keep doing it. And there's a famous saying that you don't sell a pot till you've made 1,000. Because it takes that long to truly know what makes good craftsmanship.
Well, I just want you to know, when I finished my class, everybody wanted the piece, so much so that, not that I was going to sell them, but I was supposed to go back and take another one because there were way too many people.
There's always room for you. No, but I guess people do appreciate that it came from your hands.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So personable.
Yeah.
But you have to have such patience, I find. How many times I start to do it, it collapsed. Don, if you remember, I called you Doc. I called you Doc or God. Yeah. God, can you come over and fix this?
No, and I only teach adults, and it's mainly because adults, their expectations are very low that they're going to be able to do anything. But so then it's easy to meet that expectation and surpass it. But it's also interesting because, again, adults aren't used to failing. We think that's all behind us because we're not doing new things.
Right.
When the first time someone sits at a potter's wheel, no one's a natural.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult. In fact, you know what? I probably would have lost my nerve had you not been. You were such a great teacher. I'm being very straight with you. And you know what? I'm happy to tell people where to find you, but not right now. So you said you got started in Wisconsin?
No, Minnesota.
Why did I was thinking Wisconsin.
A lot of people, for some reason, out here seem to blend the two. But yeah, St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was there for 10 years.
Do you still talk to anybody from your classes? Is it kind of like musicians?
Oh,
we always go back and forth. We run into each other at bizarre places. Are potters like that? Is it kind of like a potter's club?
Yeah, there is. It's quite a network. And the teacher I learned under there, a guy named Michael Gabriel, very, very talented artist as well as potter. He visited, I'll say 2 years ago, the house, and I had a couple of his pots still we use. And of course, he was very interested to see mine. And it was interesting. He talked about how he could see the style of foots or feet. You know.
Do you have something that shows?
Well, I'm just going back, but the foot is generally the bottom part.
Right.
And where he saw his foot in my pots, and he saw his teacher's foot in my pot. So you sort of pass down a lineage of style.
Well, I do remember the thing that I used to pull under.
Oh, the wire?
The wire.
Yeah, right.
The thing.
Sure.
The thing. So do you have a home studio? Is that where you do a lot of work? Do you bring people to your home?
Not to teach, I don't. I do have a very nice studio, and we redid the garage, and I got a nice big space for me. And that's where I do all my throwing. What I learned, though, after a couple of years of this nice space was it is isolating. So that's why I started teaching more.
Oh, you need to be with people.
Yeah, at some point I need to. I don't need to be with people all the time, but I do need.
You don't have a dog, do you?
No.
I noticed that you said about the pottery being in a studio in your home, and that you make that for your children when they go away. Do either any? You have what, 4?
4 kids, yeah.
God help you. God bless you. Do any of them have any talent or artistic talent, or are they all?
They all have a talent for critiquing pottery. And I mean that in a positive way. At this point, I've sort of taught them what's a good pot and what isn't. So they'll be very candid when they say, Dad, why don't you just recycle that pot? Or that's really a nice pot. And I actually respect their judgment. So in our cupboard, we certainly have pots that all the kids have made at some point in their life. And they get used, and they all have their favorite bowls or mugs.
Do you still have all your plates? Are all your dinner plates like ours? We go to, I don't know, TJ Maxx, and we get a nice set. They all look the same. Do you have a set of plates? And
most of what I have in the cupboard are the defects, the glaze, and the other stuff I'll sell or give away. Although when we were married, instead of china, we had a set commissioned by a potter in Chicago. And they're beautiful pots, and that's our fine dining ware.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a picture of that. Your Christmas table must be gorgeous.
It's very nice. The woman, Jane Dalton, had gotten her MFA on using apple ash glazes from her father or grandfather's apple orchard, and they're very unique, and it's very nice.
Do you do commissioned works?
Oh, I do quite a bit of it. In fact, I'd say over the last 5 years, the majority of what I sell is through that versus the art fair circuit or through co-ops and things like that.
Right. So you don't just get up in the morning and say, guess I'll just throw today and
sometimes I do for
spend
mental
the day.
health.
Oh, yes. Therapeutic.
Yeah, and just because it's fun to throw. But all of a sudden you can have a garage full of pots if you don't have a plan. So I've learned to be a little more judicious. And
do you have your own kiln?
I have a couple of kilns.
Wow.
And over the course of years, I've just grown. And you commit. At some point, you decide I'm going to get my own wheel so I can throw more, and then you realize, well, if I have a wheel, pretty soon I need to fire it, and it grows. It's a bit of an addiction.
I love it. So your house is in the country, so when you're screaming and at your pot that you've destroyed,
well, at this point I've destroyed so many, you just sort of
you go with
you
flow.
accept and you say, you know what, I can re-wedge that clay and throw another one.
I love it. I know that you said that you do commissions, but has anybody ever anybody that we know possibly, is there, like, can we find your things somewhere? If I walk into, say, a little gift shop in, I don't know, say P-Town or something, is any of your stuff anywhere that...
Yeah, I've actually backed away from that. I used to belong to 2 co-ops where part of the deal was you also had to sit at the counter. And I realized that's just not my personality.
You're not a desk guy.
I just couldn't do that. So ultimately, I pulled out of those. I certainly have sold pots through commissions, but again, most of those galleries may take 40% or 50%, which means, again, this little mug, instead of being, say, $15, is $30. And then people are less inclined to pick it up and buy it. And I'd rather have pots cheap so people are buying them and using them.
Do you do like unusual, I would say, what I'm going to call non-functional, like pieces of art? Can you do that on a wheel, or is that more kind of like clay?
Generally, you'd call it altering. You might start something on a wheel and then you're cutting it with a wire, adding pieces and everything else. Intellectually, it's not my interest. I'd rather have pieces that are going to be used every day for breakfast or dinner.
So what's your thought about the gurgle pot? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, is that
That's
the
the
fish?
fish.
Oh, from Shreve, Crump, and Low. Well, but that's a functional
I love
pot.
that.
Yeah,
I love it.
That was a clever design,
Oh.
however many 100 years ago they did it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That was very cool, very cool. I live on the Cape, or near the Cape, and there are tons and tons of people that do art down there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Artists, all kinds. In fact, I was in P-Town, or was it Wellfleet? P-Town, I think, and there was an artist who had all kinds of different things, from jewelry to clay, and everything in there. Is there a particular style that you're known for? Somebody would walk up and say, "Oh, look at that! This is a Don Whitney. I know it. I know it just by looking at it. That this is him." Or are you still in the process of becoming?
Finding my voice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very well said.
No, I would say, while I probably can't put into words, either I'll walk in a room or my wife can and say, "That's one of your pots." You know, if we visit
Really?
friends from 20 years ago, it is funny that you do have a style.
What do you call your style?
Well, it's definitely functional. I like to think it's, I focus on the throwing, the shape, so that the light and nice shape, and I worry a little bit less about the glazing. So it tends to be a well-crafted pot.
I think they call that the mud.
That's why I'm a mud man. Yeah.
And what's the glazing? The fire?
The fireman. That's
Oh,
right.
you see,
So
I did learn something from your class.
You did. There are the two camps: a mud man who really enjoys the act of throwing and the making of pottery, and then the fireman who would much rather experiment with the glazing or the chemistry that goes on in the firing in the kiln. Now, of course, you have to marry both to some degree, but
Right.
I could pretty easily just throw all the time and never fire, whereas a fireman wants to.
Well, don't you find total satisfaction in saying, okay, dip a little bit in this color, a little bit in this color, and let's see what happens? I mean, that to me is just, that's the magic. Yes, the magic is making it and saying, oh yes, look at, I have a bowl, I have a, what do I have? What did I make that? I have a matching set, didn't even know what was happening. I don't know if you remember. It was blue and white, one was a little one, and one was a bigger bowl. And it was magic when it came out. I screamed at you, I can't believe you did that.
But in fact, I brought an example of just that. That this was one of my kids.
Oh my goodness.
When they were 6 or 7 years old, learning how to throw little pieces. Before they were glazed, we were staring at them both saying, what are these going to become? But by glazing with the same pattern, all of a sudden it does look like a little set. And in fact, it's used quite a bit just for, holding spices or whatever else.
Cute.
So that's been kicking around the cupboard for quite a while.
So this was one of your children?
Yeah.
Who is now how old?
This was Scott, who is a senior in high school. So yeah, when he was,
Does he mind that you show these off?
He doesn't know that. No, the kids love when it just on the table is one of their pots because they made it.
What an interesting. I think you should take photos of all of the table settings, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and share them on your website. Don Mudman, what is your...
Mudmanpots.com.
Mudmanpots.com. I know I went to look at it and I saw a lot of works that you did.
Well, I tried to just show some examples of, again, the different styles, the earthenware, the stoneware, the raku, and then just a few different glaze combinations, because sometimes I'm in a dark glaze theme,
mood.
And then all of a sudden I realize I better lighten it up and do some whites and blues or some, something else. But
do you suggest that people do this, that everybody try it? I mean, I always tell people, anybody can sing. Anybody. They may not sing well.
Yeah.
They may not think they sing well, but it touches you in some way. I mean, I've sat in my car driving down the street, windows down, and people, la, 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 la. And I'm wondering, do you think everybody has the ability to do something like this? And they should try it.
Well, of course I'm biased because I found pottery, but without a doubt, everybody has a creative need they have to express. For some people, it's pottery or singing or cooking or knitting, or maybe it's making the perfect lawn, but everybody needs that creative outlet. I happen to find pottery, because it's something you functionally can use, is really an attractive outlet.
I think you're right. How do you get your inspirations? Did you tell me? I mean, I know that you must have good days and bad days and dark days and light days, and some days I'm just going to make a set of cups.
Absolutely. And some days centering the clay is the world's worst task, because it's not happening.
You're just not centered.
And that's exactly what it is. But generally, if for me anyways, if I struggle through it, you kind of calm down, you forget whatever's wound you up, and that Zen moment of just kind of, you're back to centering. And so those days, it may not be important that I make 20 mugs or whatever. It's just, I'm enjoying it.
I need a full set of dishes, okay, and cups. Everything is just chipped in my house. I know that everything that I've made, everything that I've done in your class, nothing has gotten destroyed in any way. Can you make me a full set?
I can.
Or maybe I'll come to a class.
That would be even better.
Oh, yeah.
And what happens is, I think some people become very stressed by the production mode of trying to make 3 things the exact same size, and other people love that. And there's no right or wrong on that. But over the course of time, because it is a craft, you can end up learning how to make all mugs that are the same size, the same shape.
So it is kind of therapeutic.
I sure is for me.
It sure wasn't for me at first. I do recall, though, I have to say I did enjoy it. I loved, like you said, being with the people. That was great. Having you come over and say, it's okay, it's fine. At the end, you turning and looking, after it being fired, looking at it, I made a piece. See, that's what's magical.
That's exactly that.
That is the magic.
Well, again, I think that first night in a class, people think, I'm never going to make anything, or maybe I'll make one bowl. And at the end of 6 or 8 weeks, whatever the class is, to have multiple pieces that you kind of like, and that's fun. Well,
I'm so glad you've come down today to TV9 and been on my show.
I'm just so glad a former student's willing to talk to me. Thank you.
If you would like to get in touch with Don in any way, his website again is mudmanpots.com. He's not on Facebook, but he's got an email, which is don.whitney, WHITNEY, @comcast.net. Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Sharon.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Tell me not to fly.